Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Aaron Jacobs Podcast, and Happy New Year. For those of you that are listening for the first time, I'm a former public school band director in the state of Ohio for the last 15 years, now turned fitness coach. And today, as we start a brand new year, I want to help you set realistic expectations for what healthy and fit actually look like, because the internet can give you some really skewed perceptions, and watching fitness influencers do what they do, look a certain way. One, it can cause people to feel really defeated and go, wow, those people look incredibly fit. I could never do that. It's just completely out of my reach. I'll never get there. If that's what it takes to be healthy, if that's what you look like when you're healthy, there's just no way I can get there. There's no way I have that kind of discipline. In fact, I would go so far as to say that some of the people that you see that are very vascular and shredded are in fact not healthy individuals. And as we'll talk about when it comes to body fat percentages and being healthy, there's definitely a range that's healthy, and it doesn't always coincide with what people consider as an optimal look or appearance. Abs is like the thing, right? Abs is the thing that everybody quote unquote wants. For most men, visible abdominal muscles will typically appear somewhere around 12 to 15 body fat percentage, with the more pronounced definitions right around 12%. For women, you can get visible abs right around 18 to 20% body fat. And obviously going a little bit lower than that, you can get them to be even more defined. Here's the issue though. When you get too low of a body fat percentage, I lived this personally in my first time I ever cut weight seriously and actually stuck to a fitness plan, which was the summer of 2020, when for 3 months straight, I dropped about 41 pounds. That is not healthy weight loss. So a couple of things went wrong there. One is the way I was eating was not eating for optimal health. I was eating for weight loss. And so when I went to go back and eat for optimal health, I didn't know how to do it. I wasn't building habits and behaviors throughout my weight loss journey that supported my ability to shift into a maintenance mode. Since a lot of people, they want new year, new them, starting out in 2025. This is where a lot of people run into problems long term. And actually, a bunch of people can lose a ton of weight pretty quickly. But the issue for most people is that they gain it back because they never learn how to live a sustainable lifestyle and adopt new habits. You just willpower yourself through the weight loss and you death grip the steering wheel, so to speak, until the weight comes off. And then a lot of times you feel like shit, as we're going to get into, because you've dropped your weight so fast. Yes, you can be healthy and energetic and have visible abs. I happen to be there. So here's a picture of me. And this is when I posted, this is not my first transformation, right? But that was me before I actually knew how to be healthy and fit on the left. And then on the right, that's just me from a couple of weeks ago. I did like 7 push-ups, turned on a few lights, and then just flexed a little bit. And that's what I look like. So you can see that there's some decent definition. I got a little bit of body hair going on, but outside of that, I got some decent definition of my top 4 abs. They come through pretty easy for me without me having to try. And then the bottom 2, not so much. I got a little layer of fat. So my body fat percentage generally hovers right around like the 14% mark, maybe 15 depending on who you ask. But I'm right around I'm fit to athletic type of body fat. But when you look at a source like the American Council on Exercise, their range for body fat categorization has male athletes 6 to 13%. Can you think of any athlete in the NFL that's performing at a high level at 6% body fat? No. And yes, your perimeter players, your cornerbacks, your wide receivers, those skill positions like that are on the perimeter that tend to be leaner and need to have speed, yeah, they're going to be at a lower body fat percentage. But I don't think any of them are at 6% body fat, because let me tell you, as someone who lived through cutting down to even single-digit body fat percent for just a little bit, when I was at my leanest ever in terms of just lowest body fat percentage, I was right around 9%. And I felt horrible. I felt like shit. Part of it was because I made a drastic cut to my weight and I didn't have muscle mass to support that weight loss and maintain my hormone health. I actually saw, and I don't have a source for this, someone can go fact check me on this, but Derrick Henry, saw one article that said that he spends like $250,000 on recovery. And that is a lot of money. I don't have that kind of time or resources to spend that kind of money on that recovery. But to his credit, he's been in the league since 2014, right? 2015 was with the draft. It's almost 10 years, and he's running great for the Ravens this year. He's running so good for them because he takes care of his body in the offseason. He really invests in his body because his body is his big money-making tool right now. But Derrick Henry, he's not at 6% body fat. That's for sure. Now, to be able to have that kind of power, to run that fast, to be that explosive, and to be that energetic, you can't have that low of a body fat percentage. And again, as someone who's lived at that low body fat percentage and how shitty I felt 4 months, not realizing that that was actually a bad thing and that I needed to be less attached to being so lean and less attached to having visible abs and more attached to my performance in the gym, getting stronger and feeling good all the time. Because if you are not supporting performing better in your life and your nutrition and your fitness habits don't take you in that direction, then you're trying to adopt behaviors of a professional bodybuilder into an amateur athlete's lifestyle. Those things just are not meant to marry. I want to caution everyone that body fat percentage being super low is not everything. And in fact, there's a healthy medium there. And for me to maintain what I have now, at this point, a few years in, it's effortless. My top 4 abs have been visible for a couple of years now without me having to really stay super lean or diet down too much. And yes, I definitely had some Christmas cookies this past week, but regardless, this is now easy to maintain because I've just been consistent for years and I can look that way effortlessly because of that consistency for years. That's the path for the average person. When it comes to actually aiming for feeling good in your life, women, if we're like right around 20, 21%, we're doing just fine. Gentlemen, if we're like 13, 14%, we're doing just fine. And if you're just trying to be fit, you just want to be healthy in your life, you want to feel energetic, you want to move well, you want to feel good and perform your best at all parts of your life without feeling super restrictive, 14 to 17% for men and 21 to 24% for women is going to get you there. And besides the American Council on Exercise, there is actually a Jackson and Pollock, not Jackson Pollock, the painter. There is a Jackson and Pollock ideal body fat percentages by age for men and women. And for 40-year-old men, ideal body fat percentage is right around 15.3%. I'm actually a little bit below that, and I'm good with that. But I'm between 35 and 40 is supposed to be 13.7% to 15.3% according to that Jackson and Pollock ideal body fat percentage calculator. I think that these are much more realistic for the average person. And I will link the calculator that you can use just to get a rough estimation of your body fat percentage in the show notes so that you can take a look at this for yourself. And speaking of visible abs, how many people actually have visible abs? Because it's not always something that's necessarily healthy, especially if you look at super vascular bodybuilders, which we're going to take a look at in a second. Fewer than 10 to 15% of all adult men and women have visible abs year-round because it's challenging to sustain the low levels of body fat in terms of having really shredded abs. Now, again, I don't know, based on the metrics that I've been using here to research, if I fall in that 10 to 15%, I think I do because I have visible abs year-round, but it's not all 6 of them. And a lot of influencers use lighting, they'll dehydrate themselves, or they'll even use performance-enhancing drugs to maintain that appearance. This is where we really get into the unhealth of the obsession with having visible abs. When people look stage ready for a bodybuilding show, this is what I think a lot of people view, which is completely mischaracterized, as healthy. So here's our guy, Chris Bumstead, 6-time world bodybuilding champion and Mr. Olympia. You can see how vascular he looks, how shredded he looks. You can see all the definition and all the things here. Really a remarkable look. When you look like that, you feel like shit. I promise it feels horrible when you are on stage as a bodybuilder. And that when they do those flexing and those poses, when you're at that low of a body fat percentage, when you've been dieting down so low, you've been eating such little calories and still trying to lift weights. You go through a bodybuilding show. I've even watched some bodybuilders document their process where they're waking up the night before every couple of hours and they're like eating carbs to get the veins to have more of that vascular look. These things are not healthy. This is not healthy behaviors or healthy lifestyle. This is not the ideal. So it's great that Chris Bumstead looks big and it's wonderful that he's built his body this way, but you are not strong when your body fat percentage is that low. He's not hitting his personal best records on his lifts when he looks like this. He can't. Even with chemical enhancement, it's very hard to hit your personal best when you look like this, and it's certainly not healthy. Let's take a look at this lady. Now, I would venture to guess that, and this is just some random woman bodybuilder that I found on Facebook. It's a real person. She's a coach, but she looks like she's doctored this image with a lot of editing tools and definitely some lighting. And this definitely looks like she's photoshopped the background for sure. So this has been very edited. And I would estimate that a woman having arms bigger than me, jeez, like her arms are freaking huge, dude. There's no way you're not chemically enhancing. And then let's take a look at our boy, Patrick Mahomes. And you can see I have a better physique than Patrick Mahomes. Would you look at that? But would anybody want what I have versus what he has? Everybody would rather be Patrick Mahomes. It's fine. He is the top performer at his position, the most important position in America's most popular sport. And his body fat percentage, that he's definitely at least 20% there in that picture. And so he is eating enough to make sure he feels fueled to be an explosive athlete. And dieting down and looking like Chris Bumstead, if you are Patrick Mahomes, he's not going to scramble around and be the runaround type of guy and be all creative and stuff. His brain is going to stop working as effectively too if he's that low of a body fat percentage. He's just going to have a brain fog. So him eating enough to feel full and sustained and energetic and being able to move enough. And also, as he said before, having a little bit of extra pudge on yourself as a football player. It's going to take hits, especially as a quarterback. Sometimes you're very vulnerable back there if your offensive linemen are not doing their best job. And I know if you follow American football, the Chiefs, their right tackle is like the most penalized NFL lineman out there. So sometimes he's got to take a hit. And he's not afraid to scramble and run around. And so if he's at a super low body fat percentage, that hit is going to hit you way harder. And so he's going to need a little bit of that body fat. Now, most NFL players, a lot of them actually get healthier after they're out of the league. So even professional athletes, what people consider healthy there is also not optimally healthy, which is an interesting conundrum that we find ourselves in. So the moral of the story is there's a ton of people that are high-performing athletes and or look a certain way like they are high performers, but they're actually not the healthiest people. Shoot, why do you think most NFL linemen that leave the league, most offensive linemen slim down a ton, and they actually drop muscle mass purposefully to be at a lower weight when they're out of the league? As much as people like to hate BMI as a health metric, BMI is not everything to a health metric, but it does have some health implications. Your heart doesn't really know the difference in how hard it's working, whether it's pumping blood to a lot of muscle or a lot of body fat. Now, the rest of your internal organs definitely know if it's body fat or if it's muscle, but your heart has to work really hard to pump all that blood to all of your mass. A lot of bodybuilders die young because they're chemically enhancing their physique. It's so hard on your heart to have all that muscle. That's where BMI matters. It still is a metric that matters. For the average person, I am almost in the overweight category for BMI. So doesn't always make sense for the average natural athlete and everyday person just trying to be really healthy. So I prefer to look at the waist to height ratio as a metric. So if you just look up waist to height ratio, I would definitely encourage everyone to take a look at that metric if you are the average person just trying to be healthy. BMI still has implications on your health because your heart still has to work harder if you are a bigger person. But there are other ways to measure your health besides stepping on a scale and looking at a BMI chart. We see a lot of extremes in our society as to what we think is athletic and healthy. So how do I measure health? Well, we talked about a couple just at the end there. The waist to height ratio, I think, is a great one. Being relatively close to the healthy BMI range is another one. I also like to measure what's your resting heart rate. How many miles can you run at a moderate pace without your heart rate spiking? What's your VO2 max? That's a bit more of an advanced metric, but how well your body can utilize oxygen under intense exercise. And ultimately, are you getting stronger? Are you focusing on building strength and fitness capacity? All of those things matter way more for the average person than having visible abs, having more vascularity, and ultimately how you look. Before you embark on your new year, new you journey in 2025, make sure that you've got your expectations set, one, realistically, and two, you have a clear picture, and hopefully today's episode helps you, of what is actually healthy for the everyday person. Thank you all very much for listening today to the Aaron Jacobs Podcast, where we have unpacked what healthy actually looks like and ways to measure that. And everyone take care and be well, and Happy New Year.